الله على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. معنا اليوم إمام أهل المدينة، إمام دار الهجرة، سيدنا ومولانا مالك بن أنس ابن مالك ابن أبي عامر، إمام من أفضل وأعظم أئمة أهل الإسلام. We are with Imam Malick, rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam Malick is not to be introduced or to be presented to people. Who doesn't hear of Imam Malick? Who does not know about Imam Malick? Imam Malick is one of the greatest Imams of this Ummah. He was the Imam of Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara. There is a hadith which says that there will be a time when people go all over the places to seek knowledge, but they will not find anyone who knows more, who knows as much as the Imam of Medina. And no one has any doubt that that Imam is Imam Malick. Because before Imam Malick, there were many muftis at the same time in Medina. After the Prophet ﷺ, there were the Sahaba. After the Sahaba, there were the Tabi'een. After Imam Malick, there were many scholars giving fatwa in Medina at the same time. But during the time of Imam Malick, no mufti in Medina but Imam Malick. They used to say, La yufta wa malikun bil Medina. There is no fatwa to be given from any scholar when Malik is in Medina. And they used to say, Kana min zinati dunya an yaqula rajulu hadithani Malik. It was a prestige that a person says, it is Malik who told me. That's how Malik was in the hearts and in the eyes of the people. He was born in Medina. The year 93 after the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some say the year 95 after the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he died in Medina the year 179. He was 84 years old for some. And Imam Waqidi rahmatullah alayhi said he was 90 years old when he passed alayhi rahmatullahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. Malik, I mentioned his father, who is Anas ibn Malik. Some people, they sometimes confuse. When they hear Malik ibn Anas and Anas ibn Malik, they don't know who's who. But Malik is Malik ibn Anas. Anas ibn Malik is the Sahabi. Malik ibn Anas is the scholar and the teacher of the people of Medina in his time and after his time. His mother wasn't known. His mother's name was Al-Aliya, from Bani Azad. The entire family of Imam Malik was a family of knowledge. His grandfather, Malik ibn Abi Amir, was among the greatest tabi'een. He's among the people who buried Sayyidina Uthman rahmatullahi tabaraka wa ta'ala anhu. He narrated hadith from the Sahaba, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, Talha ibn Zubayr, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and Aisha, and others. Some said even that he's not only a tabi'i, but he was among the Sahaba, the grandfather of Imam Malik. Some said that he was a tabi'i, and he narrated these hadith from these great Sahaba, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Talha, Sayyidina Zubayr, Sayyidina wa Mawlatuna Aisha radiyallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala ajma'in. But some said that this grandfather of Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, he was not tabi'i, he was a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Malik ibn Abi Amir. And they said he went to all the mashahid, to all the ghazawat, the wars with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam against the kuffar, except Badr. He only missed Badr. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi learned and studied and memorized the Quran when he was very young. And his very mother used to encourage him to seek knowledge. From very early age, she used to tell him, اذهب إلى ربيعة فتعلم من أدبه قبل علمه. Go to Rabi'a and learn from his wisdom, from his adab, from his manners before even his knowledge. And she used to talk to him, go to the halqa of Rabi'a and don't leave that halqa until you become the master of the halqa. Don't leave it until you become the master of the halqa. Not only did he become the master of that halqa, but he became the master of the school of Hijaz in general and the school of Medina in particular. That he narrated a hadith in Muwatta from his uncle, that great tabi'i Abu Suhail Nafi' ibn Malik, was his uncle, and he was a great scholar from among the tabi'in. He also narrated some ahadith from his father, and his father from his grandfather, but not in Muwatta. Imam Malik learned from Ibn Hurmuz for 7 years when he was young, and he really was influenced by the the manners of this great alim. And among his shuyukh was Nafi'. Nafi' was Mawla of Abdullah ibn Umar. أثبت الناس في عبد الله ibn Umar, Sayyidina Nafi', رضي الله تبارك وتعالى, and the son of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, of course, Salim. But Nafi' was the teacher of Imam Malik. Imam Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, that great scholar, one whom Abdul Amr ibn Abdul Aziz ordered to put together the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in a book, and he was a beautiful soul and a great scholar. He loved the Malik, and he was among the teachers of Imam Malik. He used to say, when he saw Imam Malik, he said, إِنَّهُ مِنْ أَوْعِيَةِ الْعِلْمِ. He is from among the containers of knowledge. Yahya ibn Sayyid al-Ansari, Muhammad ibn al-Munkadir, Hisham ibn Urwa, Ibn Zubayr, and many other scholars in Medina and Hijaz taught Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam Malik was so intelligent and smart that he would not hear anything except that he got it. Zuhri, once he came to Medina and he was giving them a hadith. He was giving them a hadith, he was telling a hadith until he said more than 70 hadiths. And he stopped. And then he said, I'm not going to continue until you memorize everything I said. One of the scholars told him, I know a kid that memorizes everything you're saying just by hearing so. He said, who is he? And he pointed to Imam Malik. Imam Malik recited the entire hadith. Zuhri rahmatullahi alayhi recited on them. That's why At-Tabrizi, Al-Khatib At-Tabrizi described him as Shaykhul Ulama'i wa Ustadul A'immati. He used to say Malik is the Shaykh of the ulama and the Ustad of the Imams. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi used to say, إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْحَدِيثُ فَمَالِكٌ النُّجْمُ. When hadith and the science of hadith is mentioned, Malik is the star. He was an imam in fiqh. He was also imam in hadith. He inherited the science of fiqh and hadith of Hijaz, entire Hijaz in general, and particularly the science of Medina. Malik, he spent his entire wealth, and he was from a wealthy family, but he spent his entire wealth in order to acquire knowledge. He used to even sell some belongings in order to get books or to get the means that would give him knowledge. That's why Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said, أقوم الناس بمذهب أهل المدينة رواية ورأيا الإمام مالك رحمة الله عليه. So there is no one to be compared with Imam Malik in the Madh-hab of Medina, whether it is narration or correct opinion. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi said that it is not right that anyone just goes and learns and studies and start teaching without having the permission of his shuyukh. He said, before I started to teach, more than 70 shuyukh, more than 70 great scholars told me that it is time for you to teach. That's called that he graduated now, but not the so-called graduation of today. It is just, some means of getting some more money. Wallahu musta'an. And he has aura. And when he was teaching, you see Imam Malik in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you would think he was the king. Even the kings, they had fear, aura, when they come to Malik. even though they were the king. Why? Because it is the knowledge. That's why when the person of knowledge, make himself lu'ba, if he makes himself, if he let people play with him, disrespect him, he is not letting people disrespect him, he's letting people disrespect the science he carries, the Quran and the Hadith and the fiqh. That's why a person who has the science of the Quran and the Sunnah and the Hadith has to be humble, but at the same time full of personality. Does not let people play with him. When we have this habit or this attitude towards knowledge, then knowledge is not expected anymore. The scholars of knowledge of Hadith and fiqh are not respected anymore. Why? Because they let themselves be played by people. They see a person of wealth, they come to him. And these scholars, they never went to see anyone because of their wealth, but because they had a nasiha for them. Malik is a little bit very different from Imam Abu Hanifa. I told the Imam Abu Hanifa, he was open to his students. They discussed for a month and took, that this is the opinion, and one of the scholars, one of the students, Imam Abu Yusuf, wrote it down. Imam Malik wasn't like that. Imam Malik was telling you what he learned from the tabi'in, from the scholars of Medina, and then they would write it down from him. When he said, it was it. That was Imam Malik, rahmatullahi alayhi. But he never, answers just a question whenever it is asked. You would ask him a question, he will wait for 3 days before answering. He would sometimes tell you, I don't know. Some people came, people came from Iraq, another from Maghrib. They came, they asked many questions. He answered few. The other delegation came, they told him these questions only Malik can answer. Malik, for 3 days, he was looking at those questions. And he said to him, I don't know. He said, what I'm going to tell people. They said, nobody knows but Abu Abdullah. He said, tell them Imam Malik doesn't know anything. Period. That's how they were. They used to say, this will ilm bil-adri, half of knowledge is I don't know. Not that they do not know, but they left Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, to be the one who really knows. When they have any type of doubt, or they wouldn't go. But today, it's very rare that you hear a scholar say, I don't know. Because to him, everybody is going to say, oh, he doesn't know anything. So what? If Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is pleased with you, why do you care for people to be pleased with you? And the greatest scholars of the Ummah that you hear after the time and during the time of Imam Malik were students of Imam Malik. For example, Imam Shafi'i. He studied with Imam Malik for 20 years. Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn Dinar, Abu Hisham al-Mughira, Ibn Abdul Rahman al-Makhzumi, and many uncounted scholars. These students of Imam Malik are the shuyukh of Imam Bukhari. They are the teachers of Imam Bukhari. These students of Imam Malik, they are the teachers of Muslim. They are the teachers of Abu Dawud. They are the teachers of Tirmidhi. They are the teachers of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. They are the teachers of Yahya ibn Ma'in and other scholars of Hadith, of A'immatul Hadith. Imam Malik, rahmatullahi, I will finish with this because I cannot just go like that, and time is very short. His qawa'id, meaning the principle of the fundamental principles of his madhab. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, people say that his Muwatta, which is his greatest work, they say most of the masail of Muwatta, he studied them with Rabi'a, and Rabi'a from Sa'id ibn Musayyib, and Sa'id ibn Musayyib from Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Umar is Muhaddath and Muhaddith. He was among the great scholars who narrated hadith from Rasulullah, but whom Allah Tabaraka Ta'ala inspires, as the Prophet ﷺ said. If there are inspired people in my ummah, Umar is one of them. Ibn al-Madini said that Malik used to go to with the opinion of Sulaiman ibn Yasar, and Sulaiman ibn Yasar with the opinion of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. That's why in the Madh-hab of Imam Malik, you will see him very inclined to the fatwa of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. But in general, his fundamental principles were al-kitab, the Quran. If he doesn't see the hukum in the Quran, Sunnah. the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. If he doesn't see it from the Sunnah, Ijma' with details. There are some details how he takes the ayah, because there are 5 rulings before he takes the hukum of the ayah. We don't have time to go through that. And Sunnah, the same thing. And al-ijma', the consensus. And ijma'u al-Madinah, that is one of the particularities of Imam Malik. The amal, the actions or the customs, the consensus of the scholars of Medina. Because to him, Medina is where the Prophet ﷺ passed. So no one knew the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ better than the people of Medina. Then al-qiyas. Qiyas is analogy. Then qawl sahabi, the statement of a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then comes al-maslahatul mursala. Al-maslahatul mursala means interest and welfare of Islam and the Muslims. Then comes al-urf wal-adat. You see, sometimes they say, oh, this is just culture, this is just custom. Of course, we do not take custom if it contradicts the Sharia or the high sources of Sharia. But the customs, they are sources of Sharia. You know, I said that about Imam Abu Hanifa, and now you see Imam Malik, it takes also customs into consideration. So long that it does not contradict the high sources of the deen. Then comes Saddu Dhara'a. Saddu Dhara'a means blocking of the means. Meaning everything that leads to haram, even if it was halal, it becomes a haram because it leads to haram. Something is permissible, but it can take to something that is haram. That's called Saddu Dhara'a, blocking of means. And then comes al-istihsan. Istihsan is judicial preference. You know, you have 2 different rulings, and the judge or the mujtahid, the scholar, see that this one makes more sense to me. That's called istihsan. Or istishab. You look the hukum, you don't see it in the book, you don't see it in the sunnah, you don't see it in any of these higher sources. We go with what is called presumption of continuance. Meaning, because things are not permissible when it comes to worship until there is a source that allows us to know that we can worship Allah with this. Then we leave that as haram to be used as worship, to worship Allah with until we have the source. Or if it is something that was to eat or to drink, because everything is halal unless what Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala makes haram in his book. Inshallah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, we will go with the writing of Muwatta and the compiling of the Madh-hab of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, and the terminologies of Imam Malik, and how the fiqh of Imam Malik, expanded to the extent that even West, when they wrote their constitutions, they used the very fiqh of Imam Malik to write their constitution. Until now, biggest part of the constitution of France is still from the fiqh of Imam Malik, rahmatullah alayhi. That is very good thing to know. Before we learn from the West, we know that West, they learned from us. They copied from Islam. And we will know about that, inshallah, more about that tomorrow, bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. Hada wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. I know the brother was reminding about our campaign.